Good afternoon and welcome to our third SITS presentation for the semester. I'm Vince Samar, I'm the director of the RIT RISE program, and I'm delighted to introduce our SITS presenter today, Mark Rosica. Professor Rosica has worn many hats at RIT: teacher, counselor, mediator, administrator, all with a primary focus on student development and well-being. He's had a major role in promoting student career awareness and success. And today, Mark will bring us not only his own wisdom and advice on how to have a really successful PhD interview, but also that of several highly experienced RIT faculty who he interviewed on camera expressly for this workshop. Mark, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Vince. Good to see you all. Thank you for joining our workshop. I want to thank you, Vince, for being our director of this program, which is a remarkable NIH-supported program helping students get into PhD programs. And I want to thank Kat, our interpreter, and Barb, our captionist. Just a little bit about this workshop. We realized that how you interview and how you interact with people when you're applying for your PhD is really critically important. So we kind of went around and contacted some experts in the area who just happened to work at RIT, and we created a video that has some really interesting information in it that we hope you will enjoy and learn from. Of course, we're not going to cover all the issues about a PhD interview because it's a very complicated process and involves many, many different things. But we did want to address kind of the top popular topics that will help you to prepare for what to do before, during, and after the PhD interview. Of course, we interviewed some of our star expert faculty here at RIT who work with students, helping them get into PhD programs. So they're talking from their direct knowledge and experience themselves. And like I said, we're going to be talking about what to do to prepare before the interview, what to do and not do during the interview, and what to do after the interview is complete. So I have goals for this workshop, and I want to hear what your goals are later when we open it up for discussion. But I want to make sure that you all learn something new here. That's one of my top goals. Second, I want to make sure that you enjoy the wisdom of our faculty. Our faculty have so much experience in this specific area as well as other areas. They not only talk about the specifics of the technology in their particular area of study, but they talk about general human nature, how to interview, how to impress people, what to do and not to do. I really want you to pay attention because there's a lot to learn here. Next, I want to be able for you to say, you know, I knew that. I want you to be able to confirm some things that you already knew, that you had in the back of your head that will kind of support like, yeah, you know some of this stuff. This is not that complicated. Fourth, I want to make sure that you realize that there are lots of different suggestions. There's lots of different ways to do things, but I want you to pick out the ones that fit your personality and your style the best. That's what's important. That's what will work best for you. And finally, I want you to have, when we finish this, I want you to say, I think I have a plan for what needs to happen that will make my interview successful, okay?
For students, it's essential to figure out why they want to seek a graduate degree, what their scientific curiosity is. And so I think that's the great foundation that they need for their personal statement. And as they're thinking about the interview and going to the next step, I think if they have been completing research experiences as part of the RISE program and other programs, that they need to weave that into a story.
Really got to be convincing that this is an internal passion that the student has got to get to this particular kind of career. And the only way they can get to that career is by getting a PhD. A PhD is the ticket.
So they need to go there not only prepared to talk about their own research, but to talk about their career aspirations in a very specific way. So when they're asked, so what do you want? Why are you pursuing a PhD? They need to know what they want to do and not just, well, I didn't know what to do once I got my bachelor's degree. That's an unacceptable answer.
At the PhD interview, they will be interested in your potential dissertation topic. This will help them find a mentor that could help train you for what you're wanting to learn. They may realize that they don't have any mentors that could train you on what you're wanting to gain through this experience. But it is a good idea to have a concrete idea of your dissertation ideas. And remember, you can change your topic later, you can change your field of research later, but during the interview, make some decision about your passion and your goals.
The graduate experience should have exposed you, or hopefully, to a lot of the things that a graduate student is going to need, which is, ownership, and maturity, collaboration, writing, communication.
And there are different kinds of interviews. There are the interviews where we're trying to convince you to come here, okay? And there are the interviews where you're trying to convince me that I should let you in.
In my experience for applying for internships, I didn't mention that I was deaf or hard of hearing. I received an offer for an internship and then called to let them know that I needed an interpreter, and the hospital canceled the interview. I've seen both ways. There are pros and cons to both approaches. What I tell my students is that it doesn't matter. It's about who they are, and if someone discriminates against them because of being deaf and hard of hearing, they don't want to be there. Yes, it's very sad that discrimination and oppression happens, but it's best to filter that out now before they get to that university and experience it at a higher level.
Mostly the professors want to encourage the students to come. So in all the interviews that I went on, in most cases, I was not being tested about my knowledge. It was more of the professor telling me about what they did and why I should potentially come to their university.
Think about whether or not you feel like it's a good fit for you, rather than what kind of name school it is. The professors and the research that they do is going to be actually even more important than the overall program.
If I'm going to interview at Columbia University in their Department of Internal Medicine, I need to know who's there. It may be that Columbia has a particular focus on some aspect of translational medicine that involves bone marrow transplants. Okay, if they've got 12 professors that are doing that there, I better understand the words they use. I need to at least learn the language.
Sure.
And so I need to do my homework before I go for an interview. Who's there? What are they doing? And particularly, is there a major theme? If I go to interview at Emory University, what have they done well for the last 20 years?
In my field, for students to understand the different types of research being done by the faculty there as individuals. So if there are 3 professors that are studying similar things that are of interest, knowing the names of those professors, the types of research they're doing is more important than knowing much about the university itself or even the degree program.
So what kind of research have you done? Who are your mentors? What's the outcome? Have you gone anywhere to present that research?
It's also good to do research outside of RIT. So spend a summer somewhere else doing research with somebody.
If you can get on a publication, that is like a bar of gold to take with you to an interview.
Before the interview, of course, you want to practice, some questions. Have some friends throw some questions at you. Be in front of a mirror and record yourself so that you can see what you look like to the person who's giving you the interview.
Another very important consideration is access services, whether you need interpreters or captioning services. I recommend ahead of time that you contact the Office of Disability Services. Most every university has one, and put the burden on the Office of Disability Services. Often individuals going for interviews will inform the department that they need access services, but the department may not be familiar with what to do in that case. And so I would suggest contacting the Department of Disability Services and have them work with the department and you as a liaison to secure services.
To summarize, before the interview, you want to make sure to clearly have in your mind exactly the ability to express why you want your PhD. You have to be really clear about that. Like many of those faculty said, you don't want to say, I have nothing else to do, or I'm kind of interested. You really want to be really clear, specific about what that PhD will do for your future and for you now as well. You want to be able to talk and weave in your research experience at RIT into your story. Your interview is the opportunity for them to discover who you are, all the things about you as a student and as a person as well. And talk about the research that you've experienced, talk especially if it was published or if it was presented someplace, and be able to talk about in depth what were the results. Be convincing. Show them your passion for your area of study. Don't show them that you're, that's not going to help you, right? And if you can, if it's possible, know your career aspirations. It's okay if you don't know, but generally say, predicting ahead, here's an area where I have a lot of interest and enthusiasm, and try to be as specific as you can, as they mentioned. If you can, have a possible dissertation topic in mind. You can always change it later. You probably will. Many people start with the idea of interest in one particular area, and then as they learn and experience more things, that changes, and that's normal. But if you can talk, generally about the interest area of your dissertation, that's impressive. That will impress them. What's really also important is they want to know who you are as a person. They will be spending the next 3 to 5 years with you. So they want to know not just about your research and your study and your knowledge ability as a student, they want to know who you are as a person. So talk about your softer skills, like your maturity, your opportunities for leadership, your communication skills and challenges, and where you've really won and really kind of rose to the top in some area. Talk about your passions and your hobbies. Who you are as a person is really important. Let them find out who that is by you telling them exactly that. And be aware that there's different kinds of interviews. As Paul said, sometimes they're trying to convince you to come there, and other times you're trying to convince them to accept you. So you can probably get a feel for what kind of an interview it's really, what's happening while you're there, and be aware of that. I'm gonna put that in the back of your mind while you're being interviewed. The question Peter Hauser brought up, do you tell them that you're deaf or hard of hearing before the interview? He told his story about what happened. They canceled his interview. Oh my gosh. But think about what are the pros and what are the cons of sharing that information. Some interviews are the chance for faculty to talk about themselves and do a little bit of bragging about their research. You have to be able to show you're interested. Show them that you really care about what they're saying. How do you do that? Ask them more in-depth questions. Tell me more about that. Did your research go into that area or this area? So ask questions. It's always okay. It shows interest. And put lots of time and effort into your personal statement, as they said. Tell your story. Your story is where you came from, how you started your area of interest, the things that happened along the way on your career, and how you arrived at where you are now. And really put in the time and the effort. That is a very, very important part of the application process. They mentioned several times, do your homework. Know the school, know their reputation, know the faculty and what research they're doing. Okay, this is not a hard thing to find out, but you really need to do your research ahead of time. And also talk about anything relative to work and research outside of your experience at RIT as well. The broader you can show them your experience in life, the more appealing you will become. Robert mentioned maybe do a practice with a friend or a family member. You could record it and you could review it so you can see how you do in an interview. Think about it. We don't get opportunities to be interviewed very often. You didn't take a course in it in college or high school, probably not. And doing an interview is really showing who you are in so many different ways. The more you practice it, the more smooth it will be. And the more smooth you are and the more comfortable you show people that you are, the more relaxed they will be in your company. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Before the interview, as Peter said, contact the Office of Disability Services. Most universities have it, and let them know specifically what services you will be needing for the interview. Always a good idea. And, this gut thing, ask yourself during the interview and after the interview, does this place feel like a good fit? Does this really match who I am? Is there something that's kind of like bugging me, or that doesn't fit exactly right? Or, wow, I felt so at home, this really fit. Pay attention to those internal feelings during the interview process as well. Now we're going to show the faculty's ideas for what to do during the PhD interview itself.
From the beginning of the interview, right after you introduce yourself, hi, my name is Robert Osgood. I'm so happy to have you spend some time with me through this interview. I'm interested in your program because of X, Y, and Z. You can just say that right up front so people know that you're not just hoping to get in somebody's program, but you want to be in this program.
And so the very first question, and it shocks me every time students mess this up, is, well, why do you want to get a PhD? What is the reason for getting a PhD? Students got to have that down.
Everything that you do before the interview helps you prepare for the interview itself. When you arrive at the interview, you already know the person and their research so that you're able to ask them, maybe, for example, they published something last year that was very interesting to you, and you can discuss that topic more.
By interviewing you, they could get some sense of a lot of the soft skills in your personality and what you're going to bring to the program.
It's very important to ask questions. And the answer that you receive may not be as important, but your questions are what is important. And if you have a variety of one-on-one interviews, you might ask the first person a question and receive a variety of answers, and then you go to the next person. Go ahead and ask them the same questions. For example, you might ask if the department provides grant money for students to assist with their research, and you get an answer about the department itself. The graduates with their PhDs from the department get postdoc opportunities. Ask the same question to the next person. That shows each person that you interact with that you know the field and you know what is to be expected.
Always, always be polite.
You don't want to come off as too cocky, like you know it all, right? You want to be humble.
Always use appropriate language. I've had people use four-letter words in applicants, and it's like, are you kidding me?
Do not be vague. Use specific vocabulary to the discipline. Name specific theories or specific lab tools. And that way, the people interviewing you can see that you're able to walk the walk and talk the talk, and that you fit their program. The more ambiguous you are, the harder it is for them to evaluate whether you'll fit their program well.
Not making good eye contact. You want that person to know that you're interested in this position and that you have researched it and you're personifying that individual that they need to hire.
You want to dress up and look nice. You want to look professional.
Don't ever answer a phone. Don't even let your phone make a sound when you're at an interview. I've had applicants go, the phone vibrates and they look at it and they go, and then they silence it and they put it back. It's like, don't do that.
Often PhD interviews go all day long, maybe one-on-one interactions, maybe lunch and social interactions. You need to be on all day long. There is not one moment that you should take off that appearance of professionalism. You're being watched all day.
Don't be afraid to say, you are my number one choice. I am extremely, like, this is where I see myself, this is where I want to go.
I've come here because you've got a number of people who are working in an area of my interest, and I'd be happy to work with any of them.
But I can talk about the people who helped me learn what I know. And focusing on the people who helped me to get where I am in the interview, I think is a really winsome characteristic that people want to hear.
Great. That part really cracks me up. There were some really funny statements from direct experience some of the faculty have had with students. But just to summarize again, for what to do and to not to do during the interview itself, introduce yourself, as Robert said, be friendly, show that you're really excited to be there, and tell them most specifically, as Richard Doolittle said, why you're interested in their program and why you want the PhD. That's really critically important. As I just mentioned, why you want that PhD. Be really clear about it. Even if you're not 100% clear and have a goal and know exactly, because you don't and you're not supposed to, but it's a good idea to get as close to that as possible, being honest, of course, and say, yeah, my thinking is this is why I want the PhD, this is why I'm interested in your program. Be really clear about that. And you have to know the people who are interviewing you. And it's a good idea to know what they've published and their area of expertise. And it's okay to go ahead and ask lots of questions. Surface questions, in-depth questions, even more, specifically related to their research, their work at the university, what they do. It's also okay to ask other questions if you have a curiosity about that as well. It's pretty wide open. If they ask you something more in-depth, it's kind of a equal opportunity for you to ask the same level of questions. There will be lots of one-on-one interviews, normally with different faculty. You meet with many of them as a group and sometimes one-on-one. It's okay to ask, as Peter said, the same questions again and again. Like, for example, I think his question was, is there grant money that's available to support the student's work? It's okay to ask because you may get different answers from different people. Just put that in the back of your mind as an interesting fact, right? Be very, very polite. Don't brag. Don't make it look like you know it all or they would be lucky to have you. The approach is to be humble and use very appropriate language. Make sure that you speak professionally and very courteously, right? Your body language, as most of us already know, is critically important. So you want to be able to show, as Leah said, dress nicely. Have appropriate clothing on. The cartoon picture in the beginning of the poster shows the guy with his teddy bear and he's in his pajamas, and it says something about, is this interview early? You really want to make sure that you are dressed appropriately for the interview. Business formal, business informal. This is fine, something that you're comfortable in, but also looks professional. You want to show them that you're serious. Robert mentioned again and again, make that eye contact. Make sure that you are looking at people directly. It lets them know that you're interested. It lets them know that you care about their words. Looking around, being distracted, picking up the phone, as Gary has had experience with, is not the way to show them that you're interested in them or their program. Listen carefully, really listen to their words, listen to what they're saying, listen to the things that they are talking about. That way, when you're really active listening, you will come up with more questions and you will be more actively engaged in the process of discussion. And fidgeting and moving things around and being distracted shows them things like you don't care, you're not that interested, and that's the opposite of what you want to show them. Should you even bother to have your cell phone with you, or should you leave it someplace or just turn it off? You don't want the distraction. You don't want the habit to beat and to destroy your interview. You don't want any distractions at all. You want to pay attention. Peter mentioned, remember that you are being watched and evaluated every minute of the interview process, even if it's all day long. You want to be professional all the time. Even if they take you out for a beer afterwards at a pub, you want to be on your best behavior. You can relax, of course, and you can have fun, of course, but you're not with your buddies, just chatting and talking any way you want. You are on a professional interview the whole time you're with them. If you think, as Leah said, that this is the top choice, it's perfectly okay to say exactly that. Say, you are my top choice, and explain why. You know, impress them. Tell them why they are the top choice. And Paul was talking about mentioning the people who helped you along the way, the people that helped you with your baccalaureate degree, and the people, the faculty and the staff that helped you preparing for your PhD. If family has influenced you in a positive way, and other professors or people that you've worked with have really supported you and helped you along your journey, mention that. It shows them that you are grateful. It shows them that you can look back and be appreciative. It's a very nice human quality to have, to show people. Okay, now we're going to show the video of what to do after the PhD interview.
Yeah, most interviews tend to be the end of the week, like a Thursday or Friday, Saturday. I think following up on Monday or Tuesday the next week and thanking the professors they met with that were of interest.
By what means? How should they thank them?
I would do it by email.
Yeah.
And I think a relatively short email. It could be just 4 or 5 sentences saying, thanks for meeting with me. I really enjoyed my visit to University X. It was great meeting with you. I really like your research in something. Write that in 1 or 2 sentences. And if you happen to meet with some graduate students in that professor's lab, you might want to mention that. Then, I really enjoyed meeting with Tony and Jane. They gave me a great understanding of what doing research in your lab might be like.
I think etiquette is the day after you do that, you could send a note and say, thank you very much for the interview. I really enjoyed, and if there were, let's say that you were there, you met 10 different faculty members and 3 of them really appealed to you, both professionally and personally. You thought, I could work with this person for 5 years, right? Then say, thank you for this opportunity to come to your campus. I'm very grateful for the interview. I enjoyed meeting the students, and I particularly enjoyed meeting Dr. Smith, Dr. Jones, and Dr. Ileana, okay? And then if you don't hear from them for maybe 3 weeks, you could follow up with a note and say, to the chair of the search committee saying, okay, where do things stand? Sure. Particularly, let's say you got accepted at your 3rd choice, and you're kind of wondering where you stand on your 2nd choice and your 1st choice. But once you've been accepted, and they tell you, we need to know in 10 days, then the day you get that acceptance letter, you should contact those other 2 institutions and say, sure, I would rather come to your institution, but I have to make a decision within 10 days. So I would be grateful. I know that you don't have to do anything suddenly on my account, but I would be grateful for your input. Should I wait or should I go?
What you should not do is email repeatedly. Every week, every few days. Do not do that. Be patient, be calm, and wait.
Amazing is send a handwritten note or all handwritten notes to the faculty that interviewed, which is usually only 3 or 4.
You do choose that institution that you want to go to. You want to make sure that you have a line of communication open, because one of the things that all programs do now, I know, is that you have to set up rotations, right? And so, having a thank you note sent to each of the individuals that you interact with, say, thank you for interacting with me and hosting me while I came to visit.
Mary Pat, thanks for showing me around campus last week. I really appreciated it, because almost all the time, the committee that's going to make the decision will talk to that graduate student and say, hey, you had some time with that applicant from RIT, what'd you think? And if that person has received a thank you, they're going to say, that was a really good experience. She was so nice, she sent me a thank you note.
It depends on faculty availability. There may be 4 weeks of interviews, but they won't be back to back. There may be spaces of time in between the weeks of interviews. So you might be the first week of interviews, but then there are 3 or 4 more weeks of interviews that you'll have to wait for. Then once the interviews are concluded, the university sends the offer letters. They allow the people to reject or accept the offers, and then they start their second round of offers. So be patient and wait.
Maybe you're starting to get a sense that it's not just academic and knowledge and skills and scientific expertise, but it is showing them who you are as a person in so many different ways. And your politeness and your respect and your appreciation will really influence them. They, as they said in the process, they're interviewing many different people, and this is very, very competitive most of the time. And you want to do things that really stand out and show that you are not your average so-so person. You are something special, different, unique. You want to be able to show them those kinds of things. So they're talking about what to do after the interview. You follow up with the professors who interviewed you. You make contact with them. And there's a couple of different ways that they suggested. Either a short email, or even better, some faculty like a handwritten note of thanks to everyone who you spend time with during the interview. That kind of goes a long way in showing people that you are appreciative and that you care and that the time with them was well spent. Mention the research that you liked, the people that you would like to work more in depth with, what you liked about the interview, what you liked about the equipment, the classrooms, the facilities, those kinds of things about the campus. Mention anything that you liked. You noticed nowhere should you say, these are the things that I did not like, because you don't want to mention those kinds of things. So important to make contact with everyone that you interviewed with? Yes, because they will be not contacting, they will be talking about you among themselves, and they will be discussing. And if it's very competitive, if they have 4 positions open and 20 people applying, you want to make sure that your name rises to the top of that list, okay? So feedback and interaction with everybody that you had contact with, which means you may have to be planning ahead of time. You finish an interview, you finish a discussion with another graduate student or with a professor. If you don't have their contact information, that would be a good time for you to get that and put that down. Ask for a card, ask for their email address, their address where you could write a letter or something, those kinds of things. So be thinking that during the interview process itself. And like Peter was mentioning, don't be sending multiple emails, nervous because you haven't heard anything. It's okay to contact them and just ask them where they stand with their decision after some time, not the next day. You know, the process could take up to 4 weeks, 5 weeks, interviewing lots of different students. It's a complicated process, so they were not going to know right away. So you want to be patient, and it's always okay to contact them within a reasonable amount of time. And if you have a deadline, as I think Paul did a nice job explaining very nicely, very politely, I need to make a decision by this deadline. If it's possible to let me know by this time frame, I would really appreciate it. You know, asking and letting them know where you are. If you have to make a decision, if other places have a deadline, it's appropriate. It's okay to do that. The whole interview system, they were explaining, it's pretty complicated. 3 weeks, 4 weeks of interviews. Then they offer their top students the number of positions that they have open. Then they have to give it time for the student to accept the offer or reject the offer. Then they go into group 2. There's 5 positions open, 3 accepted. They have 2 positions that are left to be filled. They go to the next group and they offer those students those positions that are open. So it takes time. It takes time. So you have to be patient in the process. And it's always okay, and it's a good idea to ask them yourself approximately when will you be making your first offer to that group of students? You know, that week period, you know, an average amount of time from now, do you think, when will you be making those kinds of offers? It's okay to ask. The last part of our video is more general information and advice from our professors. We're going to watch that part now, and then we'll do a summary, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments.
Put a lot of time and effort into your personal statement.
As part of the admissions requirement or the application process, all graduate programs now, you have to write a narrative, a personal narrative, and I think that's part of your story. It's who you are.
If you use interpreters, I highly recommend that you meet with the interpreters ahead of time, maybe the day before or an hour ahead of time, a minimum of 30 minutes before time. You should give them a vocabulary list, which includes names of labs that you've worked in, lab mentors that you have worked under, various terms that you might mention. It doesn't need to be a paragraph, but just bullet points or a list of terms.
Are there things I can do to help you feel more comfortable? I want to know you for the best person that you are. Yeah. I want to know you. I want to be able to see your potential, because that's really what interviewers are looking for. Most undergraduates come out as a bundle of potential, and I want to be able to understand what is your potential, and I don't want communication barriers to stand in the way of that.
Sometimes you have to swallow your pride. You might think that you can speak perfectly clearly or you can sign beautifully, but the most important thing is that you can understand each other, whomever you're communicating with, and present yourself as a hearing candidate for a PhD program.
Make sure you look at all the faculty within that department they're applying to. What's the kind of research that's going on? And pick 2 or 3 faculty that you could say, no, I think I'd like to work with them. My background, my research, and my previous research and the areas that I have interest in jive with these 3 people. Yeah. And so when you go to interview, you want to make sure that you mention those 3 people. You might not be interviewed by any of them, but it shows that you've done your work. That you've investigated the university, you've investigated specifically within that department the people that they'd like to work with, because it shows an expansion of what they've already learned. It builds on their foundation.
Know who you might be meeting with, or you don't know who you're meeting with in the faculty. Yeah. Emailing those faculty ahead of time would be useful. Yeah. So if you have not received an agenda yet by Wednesday and you're interviewing on Friday, I think it'd be reasonable to reach out to if you had 3 favorite professors in that program, right, reaching out to say, I'm going to be on campus on Friday for interviews. I'd really like an opportunity to meet with you.
Be there for a good reason, not because no one else invited you. Demonstrate that you understand what the particular program, what people in it are doing, but don't go into such detail that it looks like, you stayed up for 3 weeks reading all the papers prepping for the interview.
Suppose you're struggling to understand. Be careful. You will struggle to understand. It doesn't matter if you're trying to lip read the person or you have an interpreter in the room. There will be things that you miss. And some people say, fake it till you make it. Other people will talk about what's called imposter syndrome, where you might not feel like you qualify to be there, but you look like you qualify to be there or act like you do. It's important that when you're being asked questions, that you don't just nod and go along, even if you don't understand, and you don't just rapid fire questions at the other person. If you're absolutely clueless or lost completely, just ask for clarification. And there's a balance. Don't ask every single question after every question. And it is fine to say, I'm sorry, I missed that, but yes, not after every sentence. If that happens, then the interviewer may wonder how you can follow along in class or communicate just on a daily level. Now, this is not a type of discrimination, but an honest assessment of someone's ability to follow along in the program. And that's how they assess that before you arrive on location.
So they covered a lot of different topics in that last part of the video, the interview. So just to summarize again, if it's arranged, it's always a good idea, of course, to meet with your interpreters before the interview. Give them the names of labs that are not common names, familiar names, the kind of research, the words that you're going to be using, so they're familiar with your experience, so they can convey what you're saying accurately to during the interview itself. It's a really good idea to get to know, just by doing your research, who are the faculty in that department, who's doing the research, and be able to identify one or more faculty that you'd be interested in working with while you're working on your PhD. It's always okay to say that. Like I said, even if they're not interviewing you, knowing the names and the kind of research that's done at that institution is a good idea. If possible, find out, because it's normally planned and printed way ahead of time, find out what the interview schedule is, which will give you the names of the people that you'll be involved with. And remember their names, because you're going to be in contact with them later. And it's important for them to remember you. And use their formal name. Don't call them by their first name. Always start off with Professor Rossica or whatever. And then if they say, oh, call me Mark, then it's okay to do that. But always start off on the more professional side of things. Be courteous. And of course, you may miss something during the interview. That happens. We all do. It's okay. Don't just sit there and nod your head like so many students have a tendency to do, because they don't want to look like they missed it. They don't want to look like they don't understand, so they nod their heads. That is never going to help you. What will show them that you're really interested and that you care about the discussion and you want to know exactly what's going on, ask clarifying questions. It's always okay to do that. Like one of our faculty said, you don't want to be asking again and again and again at every sentence. They will be unsure that you'd be able to be a good student that way. But to occasionally ask for clarification or ask them to repeat, always okay. Okay, Tanya, hello.
All right, hello everyone. First of all, thank you so much. I was wondering, so in all of the videos and in some of the discussion, I didn't hear anything mentioned about what you can bring to the interview. So should we bring, for example, a notepad so that we can write down notes during the interview? Or can I bring my own notes to remind myself of what I want to ask them? Or should I hold all of those just in my head? Is it unprofessional to take notes or have notes ready? But if I have questions that I want to ask, is it appropriate to bring a notepad with those notes?
Good question, Tanya. I think whatever a person is comfortable with, you bring that to your interview. It's going to help you remember. It's going to maybe put down some things that you want to remember to talk about, or you'll be writing down some facts or some things that people are telling you. Showing that you're writing things down shows them that you're interested and that you're engaged in the discussion. Good idea. Good idea. So you should always bring whatever you're comfortable with, of course.
Hi.
Hi.
So I had a question about before you actually get your interview and potentially getting into like the department that you want to get into, would you recommend actually reaching out to the professors or the labs that you are interested in directly, or just researching them and being really informed?
Camille, that's an interesting question, because showing that you have an interest in their lab or their work as an undergraduate student, is always a good idea. If you can somehow present yourself to them before you're applying for the program, they're like, oh yeah, that student from RIT, she came and she spent a week with us and she did some research and she asked a lot of good questions. That kind of puts your name in their head sooner, and that's always a good idea. So you don't necessarily have to wait for the interview to introduce yourself and go and meet people. It would be nice if you could contact people ahead of time and have it set up so they're expecting you and they know that you're coming, that you want to spend some time with their labs or with the researchers. Always a good idea. Vince or TJ, anybody else have any other ideas in response to that question?
Actually, in some fields, it's expected now that a student will reach out to a particular program and specifically the faculty they're interested in working with to find out whether or not that faculty member is accepting new students and to introduce themselves. So I'm particularly aware of an instance of this happening in the area of bioinformatics. And I'm sure other programs, have developed this protocol.
I really appreciated how you had all these different professors that come together, because I thought that offered a lot of different perspectives on what to do for PhD application interview. And one thing that really stuck out to me is to be specific about what you're interested in and why you want to do a PhD and your dissertation topic. Like, it doesn't have to be something that's set in stone, but that really stuck out to me, is to think ahead of time of what you want your dissertation topic to be about. And yeah, that's just something new I learned. Thank you.
Yeah, Anna, that's a good point. And they all really stress that point a lot, that being clear about your goals, even if they're kind of murky, even if you're not 100% sure, of course, about your dissertation or the career that you want or the kind of work that you want to be doing when you finish your PhD, that's 4 or 5 years away. And it would be crazy to think that you already know. But mentioning what you do know and your interest and your enthusiasm about topics is what really hooks people. It's what gets their attention. And you want them to remember, oh yeah, Anna talked about that as an idea. And that really fits a lot of the work that we do at our institution. So that kind of information is always really good. So thanks for recognizing that, Anna.
So I was wondering when you get the schedule so you know who's interviewing you, so that you can do a little bit of research on what they do for research.
If you don't get an interview sent to you in the mail, you should ask the agenda. You should ask for it ahead of time. And if you don't have anything by more than a week ahead of time, because sometimes the mail really takes a long time, call them up, send them an email, and ask for the agenda. Of course, it would be respectful and polite to ask for that. Sure, right. Yep. And then while you're there, they probably won't include on the agenda all the contact information that you need, and that's what you have to gather while you're interviewing people. So while you're there, say, can I have your business card, or can I have your email or your address, or a way I can contact you after the interview? People will never hesitate giving you that information.
So my question is related to the PhD application. When is the best time to send in your application?
From what I understand, in this area, it's usually later in the fall semester. I will let my colleague Vince confirm that for me.
It's program dependent. It depends on where you're applying, but typically December, sometimes early January.
Okay.
Is the application deadline.
But my experience is that the timing of when you apply is really not that important. There will be a deadline, and they will cut it off, and they will have that number of applicants to look at and to pick from. The number of positions that are open in PhD programs are always limited. So maybe they will have 5 positions and they'll have 20 people who have applied. They won't be looking at those who applied first as a priority or a preference. They'll be looking at your personal statement and your experience and your research, and those kinds of things are much more important than when you apply. All right, well, I'm going to wrap things up. I want to thank all of you. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for joining. I hope you learned some new things and confirmed some things that you already knew, and that your PhD interview is incredibly successful. If you would like to contact me or chat with me more in depth about any of these, you can contact me, of course, or TJ at any time, who's the advisor for RISE. And we would be happy to sit down and chat more with you in depth.